Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with Kevin, where we add value to people's lives, happening every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 12 on ebizradio.com. You can catch the Lunchtime series on all major podcast channels. And for our Lunchtime marketing segment, proudly brought to you by Hollard Insurance, #Big Ads for Small Businesses. As per usual, joining us, our marketing communications expert, Craig Painsley. How you doing, Craig?
Kevin, I'm well, thank you. Yeah, good, man.
Good to see you after, I know we're both having crazy weeks and crazy, that's exciting.
I know the calendars are moving and these recordings are getting earlier and earlier. But yeah, it is exciting times. And, the fact that we're now well into that last quarter of the year, which really is, I think by mid-October, we're going to have exactly 2 months of work left, because you know what happens in South Africa.
Yeah.
It's 16th of August onwards, at least 16th of December onwards, we just literally close down.
Exactly, yes. So we're going to hurry up and make it happen, right?
Yes.
Craig, so I don't know about you, but I've never, the fact that we had the conversation that we heard last week, to endure some hardships that our guests sort of shared with us, Letonolo Mutsahing from Moja Chicken had to go through some serious survival for his business, and that entrepreneurial spirit, that ongoing, like, never give up kind of attitude. Even living in his car, doing what he had to make things happen. Listening to it gives you chills to kind of go, this man had to go through what he went. And here he is, literally a year and a half later, in a very short space of time. Hollard stepped in, helped the man, and gave him an opportunity, which he took more. And lo and behold, 8 stores later, he's kicking butt. And I'm like, just listening to it, it was like, it's phenomenal, hey?
I know. I actually just haven't stopped thinking about his comments either, Kevin. And just, I've been in a situation where being part of a startup. I've also had to sell personal items, refinance a vehicle, recalibrate my lifestyle to ensure survival of a startup. But I've always had the benefit of close friends and family, for a roof over the head, a place to sleep, and food on the table. And as you mentioned, Letonolo actually had to sleep in his vehicle at times where he had nowhere to go. And when a friend took him in, then the last resort he had was the value of the sale of his vehicle to pump into his business. But really, what impressed me immensely there, Kevin, is when Letonolo realized he was probably suffering from depression. He was in that really negative space, that lazy sleep all day environment, and that really is a big indicator of depression, and that's when you're on the downward spiral. And it was just incredible to see how he was able to motivate himself out of that space by getting the call from someone he knew, who was aware of this particular opportunity within Hollard, and that he actually gathered his senses. And it took him 2 days, and he literally handed it in, the application for consideration, just on the day just before deadline. And he gathered his senses, and he spent an inordinate amount of time just putting clarity down on paper and realizing that this was another opportunity to take him out of the position was. And what was really great is he definitely realized he had nothing to lose by doing it. And at the end of the day, as you've just mentioned, we know that he's had everything to gain by actually being successful in his application of Hollard. So a big up to Letonolo Motsing of Moja Chicken. He absolutely deserves the break. He's absolutely in capable hands in the guiding and mentoring that Hollard Insurance is bringing to the 12 recipients of the campaign. And I genuinely believe, and as I'm sure you do, he absolutely has the ability to shoot the lights out and achieve his dreams of opening 100 stores within a 5-year period, Kevin.
Absolutely. And building on some of those comments, Craig, what are the key takeaways, points from last week's conversation that you can share with listeners?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So I just want to reiterate that the only way one can grasp a full understanding of what Letonolo had to endure is really listening to the podcast again and hearing both firsthand about his journey, but also about his passion and his commitment to grow a uniquely South African brand. And that's definitely worth a big punt again. So in getting back to the takeaway points, Kevin, I think the lessons for our listeners from last week go as follows. Point 1, launching a startup business takes time. Even the smallest idea takes a lot of time and will surprise you. Make sure you have a clear runway of planning in your strategic thinking. Point 2, have a clear idea about what your business wants to be, what it offers, and what it stands for. So again, here's a really great thing. So as much as Lekgonolo had to endure all of these hardships, he clearly understood and knew that he wanted a chicken-based fast food business and that he wanted it to be firstly national and then secondly expand across the continent. So he had a clear vision of intent and what he wanted to do with this brand. Point 3 is be very clear of how to position your business. It was great listening to him, how he went on about wanting to outsmart Nando's and KFC by having these, and even Chicken Licken by having these bigger, plumper, juicier chickens on his menu. And I think he mentioned something around the fact of about a 1.6 kilogram chicken, stand under correction. But he very quickly realized that having the best and biggest spatchcock chicken on the menu would be a very costly exercise. And in a very short period of time, he'd be out of business, not having eaten himself out of business, but his customers eaten him out of business. So he then accepted parity in terms of the core offering, and then quickly realized that he can differentiate on taste and on experience. And he therefore was able to develop a bespoke and highly desirable range of sauces for his grilled chicken. These are available for general consumption and purchase, I should say. And he also developed a really detailed plan on how to deliver the best quality experience at the 8 stores he had in place at that point. Point number 4, develop a clear and simple name and branding identity. And this again is where I really take my hat off to Lekgonolo. He knew what he wanted to call his business. He came up with the name Mojo, which means the same thing in many different languages and easily adaptable and transferable in vernacular. And that's a good starting point for any brand, a single-minded reference, a single-minded understanding of the power of what the brand means, and in this instance, meaning nice, lucky, enjoyable, etc. Once you have the name and identity, ensure ruthless consistency of application across all touch points, and he did that. He built a brand guideline. Before he even launched his brand, he was putting all of these aspects in play, Kevin, and getting ready to take it to market. Point 5, there will be a moment in time when outsiders, investors, funders, supply chain partners want a piece of the business. Choose carefully and never give away more than you have to, irrespective of how desperate you may be. And he did reference again there that where there were some investors that wanted to come in and they wanted too big a share of his business, and he just knew that he was going to do all the work and walk away with nothing. Point 6, do an in-depth industry analysis. Know the market, review the opportunity. And this is where he quickly got to realize that South Africans consume the 3rd most chickens in the world. Yeah, a fact that surprised both you and I. He also applied a comprehensive SWOT analysis and developed his 5P analysis of price, place, product, promotion, and people. And once he had that in place, he just knew that he was going down the right path. What he needed then was just to get the initial lift off. Point 7, introduce technology to help streamline and run the business. So great thing here is that he was able to develop this technology that could actually allow him to view into each of the environments that were operating. You could have a look at it from quality control, how the food was being prepared, what was happening in the back kitchen, stock loss management, and the opportunity exists to develop it into an ordering platform, cashless payments, and again to integrate a rewards and loyalty platform in it. And the key thing here, Kevin, is that brands that develop ecosystems, that digital connectivity across all the touch points, tend to grow faster than the average brand. So definitely he's heading off in the right direction. And my final point here, Kevin, is if you believe in it, get advice early in the thinking and setup stage. That way, there will be a hell of a lot less to change if things go wrong, or if you've overlooked something critical in the success of your business. And yeah, that's the 8 points of last week's conversation.
Yeah, Craig, guys, if you want to go and check it out, go and check it out on ebizradio.com. You can also check it on the all major podcast channels. Fantastic conversation, and such an inspiring story on someone taking action to their life. I absolutely loved it. Craig, so last week you mentioned something about looking at the latest brand rankings. Please share with the listeners what we are in for today.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. I referenced the Kantar BrandZ 2021 Most Valuable South African Brands report last week. So just the great thing is that I reference it not just in terms of the topic of today, but also as a motivator for Letlhogonelo Matseng of Moja to really inspire him and motivate him to move forward, because Nando's is the only fast food brand that makes it onto the list, coming in at position 6 with a value of 1,678 million US dollars. Yes, down 16% on last year's value of 1,997 million, and dropping one position from last year's ranking at number 5. And obviously we understand all of the factors behind that, COVID and the challenges that come with that. But really, it was inspiration for me going through the ranking, but inspiration for me to give him this pointer as fact that he can eventually see his brand out there. So yeah, I can just sit here and I'm sure you can, envisaging Letlhogonelo with all his passion, enthusiasm, commitment, his dead set determination, making it onto the top rankings in the next few years. And yeah, he could be the real game changer or competitor to Nando's.
And Craig, I think the fact that he's done what he's done in such a short space of time, I think it's very, very possible. It's when you see the success of what people are doing and how quickly they can rise to success. I don't think it's impossible. And how why not? For having another major chicken brand in South Africa, I'm like, hell, let's do it. Let's see it. Let's support it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we talk, I'm actually thinking about the recipients of the benefit of Hollard's Big Ads for Small Business campaign. Imagine if there are a few of those other categories, other sectors, and sit here in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and actually look back at their respective journeys to see if Hollard's campaign actually was a catalyst for helping any of those onto the big brand ranking platforms into the future, Kevin. And that would be really, really cool to know that we've actually hosted and contributed part of the conversation to their existence as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I really would love to see is the big business owners in this country talking about their brand journeys, and actually the opportunity to create a short storybook of the likes of the Whitey Basons, the Raymond Ackermans, the Nando's founders, all of them putting their stories down, Rosie, and just giving a little snippet of a view into their life and the challenges that they were faced with in trying to keep their businesses alive. And, I'm sure that many of them also had to endure a lot of the hardships that the young entrepreneurs of today are having to deal with. But it would be a great topic for a how we did it business book, Kevin, something that we could initiate through the show.
Yeah, it would be really great to, like, Raymond Ackerman, Pick and Pay, or Whitey Basson from ShopRite Holdings, Adrian Gore, Discovery Group, sharing stories like this from their formative years and what the successes are and how the brand grew. I think that would be a complete tune-in moment for everybody, actually.
Yeah. I think we must actually pick up on that and really persevere with that kind of thing. It could be a really great storybook for success of great business in South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but Kevin, before I look at the rankings in detail today, I wanted to spend some time in familiarizing ourselves with a whole plethora of terms and methodologies. Not that Kantar are bringing new words to market and building out thinking around acronyms, but there definitely are a couple of phrases, terminology, and terms in the report that we all know too well. the industry is littered with them, but in this particular instance, they have absolute apparent meaning, and they definitely more than the holier than thou statement. So it's worthwhile just referencing a couple of the words, the likes of meaning, salience, difference or differentiation, uniqueness, affinity, the four fundamentals of experience, functionality, convenience, and exposure, and a whole lot more. I can assure you of that. And we've heard those words all too often in our shows, referencing specific sectors of the industry.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, looking at the context of the first three words that I mentioned there, I just want to kick off and show how these words apply to brands, irrespective of the size, the category, or sector. Let's just have a look at that. So, the first word here is meaning. It's about meeting people's needs in a way that creates affinity. So, what does the brand do to meet people's needs to create affinity? And just for those that don't know, affinity is a natural liking or an understanding of someone or something. So a brand creates that affinity with the audience, and it meets a particular need in their life. Salience is the second word. It's important about being in the lives of consumers, not just being loud. So so firstly, the brand has now met a need. What is that brand doing to be in the lives of consumers, as opposed to just standing on the side, bleating out big noises and actually really not understanding what it's about? It's about being seen as fulfilling people's needs in ways that build deeper connections with them. And what's really interesting, when you do read into the report, is there's really only a small gap that exists between the term of meaning and salience with South African brands versus those of international brands, and that's a really good indicator to see. Then the third word here is difference or differentiation, and this is about how your brand is set apart from the competition by associating a superior performance aspect of your brand with multiple customer benefits. Interestingly here, though, that the report notes that there's a major room for improvement in this measurement for South African brands, as they definitely are lagging the international counterpoints in this regard.
Thanks for that, Craig. I can definitely see how the words or concepts work together in meeting consumer needs and creating a bigger and more meaningful impact. Craig, so you also mentioned the four fundamentals of experience, functionality, convenience, and exposure. What is a brand structure analysis, and what does it mean?
Yeah, Kevin, yes, thanks. Again, as I was saying earlier, there's a whole basket full of these words and terms. Whilst not overused, it's most definitely not a new concept. And I do believe that the aspect of brand structure analysis is core to understanding brand performance and brand success. So, it's important here that we go through the four fundamentals of brand structure analysis. And to reiterate, they are experience, functionality, convenience, and exposure. So, starting with experience, we know that strong brands provide superior experience across all consumer touchpoints. We know what's happened pre-COVID. Brands that ignored the consumers lost out in the journey. Brands that engaged with consumers built new channels of communication and new opportunities to engage and shift the face-to-face experience into a digital environment and really stay relevant throughout that particular entire journey. And most importantly, the likes of COVID is actually necessitated the need for brands to really understand the importance of post-sale experience as well. When customers cannot come into stores and customers cannot walk into a telco provider to get help setting up their devices or technology enablement, the virtual brains trust that's able to manage and help set you up remotely, incredibly important in that regard. So ensuring the transition from the online to the offline, and now as we go back to a people first world again, how do you not lose the online greatness, but bring some of the offline experience improvements back to play? Yeah. And then, it's also about understanding the balance between, and I know we spoke about this in the automotive piece, the balance between what do you relegate to technology like chatbots, and then how much do you leave to the front-end consumer-facing staff as well? The second point is the functionality aspect, and this is about offering a product or service that is seen as well designed within a suitable range of options, and it innovates as a necessity to maintain value, functionality. Here, the likes of Apple Pay, Apple device, embedded technologies, going into a store, touching your mobile device on the POS device, just an integrated ecosystem coming to life there. The likes of Control CTRL, an incredible new brand in South Africa, a great digital insurance advisor, a great competitor to the likes of Hippo, where you're aggregating in insurance pricing. These guys are really a step ahead of the game, but again, they've developed an ecosystem that is incredibly important, because that ecosystem delivers against the functionality needs of consumers. Next is consumer. It's convenience. In this consumer-led environment, it's essential for brands to fit seamlessly into the everyday lives of users. And the final fundamental is exposure. Again, we know this. Strong brands create great advertising with memorable icons and messaging. And, the likes of Nike, Swoosh, and the Just Do It statement. And interestingly, again, here is Nike never once selling a pair of shoes, but selling to the performance and achievement of sportsmen around the world. McDonald's, the big yellow golden arches, totally synonymous with fast food. BMW and the sheer driving pleasure payoff. And then my all-time favorite one, Kevin, is Patek Philippe, with their positioning is, you never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. That statement alone is just about making a big promise around performance and longevity and sustainability of their particular product. So what's important to know on this, Kevin, and I'm going to quote a paragraph from the report, states that while these fundamentals vary in the effectiveness across geographies, they are integral to growth in South Africa. Globally, the four fundamentals account for 70% of all brand value growth, while in South Africa they contribute 62%. This compares favorably to the BRICS counterparts of China and India, where they account for only 47% and 54% respectively. So in spite of the unique circumstances of South Africa, the building blocks of brand value in the country remain similar to those found elsewhere. A really, really great reference, that. And closing on the point, it's worth noting that success is in essence as simple as getting the fundamentals right, solving the value equation, and building your unique differentiation.
That comparison to the favorably to BRICS counterparts like China and India, that's you would think that China would be far more in the lead than in their actual fundamentals in how their brand value growth is looking compared to South Africa. And it's not.
Yeah, Kevin, I was pleasantly surprised at that. And there are a couple of things that rush through my mind. One is it possibly that the market is so big that the audience quantum, it's hard to always ensure that you achieve against experience, functionality, convenience, and exposure every single time for every single one of the consumer engagements, because the market is just so big. Or the product development so rapid that as soon as you build a relationship with a brand, there's another version, iteration, or another brand to associate with, and you don't get the chance for the longevity of the life cycle of that particular product. And those are just 2 points that pop to mind straight away. So, yeah, a good point you make, but I don't have the full answer there, but definitely it surprised me. It really did.
And also, potentially at the speed and rate at what they evolve and get stuff done, the moment you think you're having a wonderful, you have a wonderful product and it's really doing a thing, someone else is doing something better or offering a better, so that constant, where in South Africa, I don't think we have that like Nando's. Nando's is one of the only brands, the chicken brands, are best well-known brands in South Africa. I think the only other one I know of is KFC, and yeah, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, Chicken Licken is definitely another one out there. There are one or two others, smaller brands that I've come across. I know there's one with green and red and white in the logo, but for goodness sake, I can't recall the name, which is a bad thing. But definitely in terms of what the brand stands for, the offering, the flavor, all those great nuances, the localization aspect, Nando's is right out there in the front end. And then the international brands of the KFCs, the universal accepted from one country to the next. That's what we expect. That's what the taste is. That's what the outside burning oil smell is, and all those other great things that come with that good old KFC and Mackie D's,
So, Craig, we've learned to deal about the terms and concepts defining brand performance and what these mean when evaluating brand value. Are you able to provide some insight into the ranking and share which brands are included and what the overall ranking consists of?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be quite revealing, and there's a couple of great surprises in the ranking as well. So just to set the context, Kevin, I want to start by quoting directly from page 4 of the report, and it opens with some really great facts here. So, for all uniqueness of our country, the building blocks of brand value in South Africa are remarkably similar to those in our markets, a point that came out in a similar way in the previous paragraph. Our analysis dovetails in important ways with 20 years of Kantar BrandZ research in both South Africa and around the world, which has repeatedly demonstrated that a strong, differentiated brand provides resilience during downturns and quicker return to growth when things improve, no matter how extreme the circumstances. And just on that point, Kevin, if you look at the strength of the value of superior shareholder return on strong brands, if you look at a period 2006 to 2021, 15-year period, in the S&P, over that 15-year period, strong brands grew by 224%, generated 224% of shareholder value growth. The most powerful brands in the top 10 portfolio, based on the BrandZ ranking, generated 463% growth.
Wow.
The strong brands portfolio, which is the portfolio below going to the top 10 to top 100, generated 363% growth. And the number of economic downturns, political interventions, social challenges that the world has been faced with over a 15-year period. Dips in the late 2000s, dips in 2019, 2020 that obliterated shareholder value, as we saw with the beach industries. But the beautiful turnaround in upward trajectory is really the evidence point that top powerful brands have been able to generate 463% of shareholder brand value growth over a 15-year period. So, it's vitally important to understand what the drivers are to ensure that you succeed as a top brand. And that's why we went through the basket of words, but it gave clarity as to the measures and the intent behind the words. So, I want to read on a bit more to understand the extent of the report. The study now includes the opinions of over 31,335 South Africans on 660 brands in 47 categories. So a really deep and broad piece of research, Kevin. The data also shows that in 2021, brands were already seeing signals of recovery from last year's major disruptor, COVID-19. As we know, we also picked up on the amazing trajectory on the beach industries again. The value of the rankings, and this surprised me, the value of the rankings only declined by 3% over the 2-year period, which in South African context relates to $28.8 billion, which that in itself is quite huge. But interestingly, again, several brands made huge gains in value, Kevin. The report also marks the introduction of that new framework, which looks at levers that create the brand value. And in the past year, the Kantar BrandZ undertook a rigorous research study that identified what those are, those being, again, to reiterate, experience, exposure, functionality, and convenience. And as we mentioned earlier, those four account for 70% of global growth in brand value, with South Africa coming in at 62%.
Yeah, Craig, when you look at numbers like this, it's incomprehensible of like the amounts, like 28.8 billion in decline, right?
Dollars, like, not rands, Kevin. Right? Yeah.
It's insane. It's an insane amount of money that we're talking about here.
And it all does point to the fact that, apart from the political challenges, the economic situation, where we are on the continent as a geography, overcoming all of those issues and challenges, the South African economy is by all means a fairly robust, important economy to the world, very much so to the African continent, but that we really have a lot of value driving in the economy, and that's something to be proud of as a South African business.
I also don't think a lot of people are aware of it. I don't think that's often spoken about, and the fact that we bring attention to the fact that we're, as much as we have to deal with what we have to deal with, we're still thriving. We're still making it happen.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kevin, because if you consider how few people actually get to read these reports, to access these reports, mainly the brand leaders, the organizational heads, the agencies that are involved, and the broader marketing community and branding community, whereas how deep into the public domain do these reports go? And if they do get there, what is the interpretation of the detail behind it and the understanding of the metrics that come out of these reports to the broader populace, and the individual who goes to Capitec Bank, what is his understanding and appreciation of his experience relative to what the report says in relation to those metrics that define that experience as well? So, what are the expectation gaps, and what is the real meaning behind it?
And to add to what you're saying, this with the unemployment rate at the height that it is, you kind of go with the country that really needs to work at the unemployment rate. We're still churning out this type of value, and we're still churning out this. Can you imagine what that meant if we changed the unemployment rate in this country, and really what that would mean for the country? It's insane.
It is insane. Just to add on to that, you actually make a really good point, because the one precursor that the report does deliver, and it's an important fact to understand in response to that, Kevin, is that the full evaluation and criterion was up to, I think the final results came out in July this year. So most of the research was done pre the political upheaval we had, particularly in KZN, where, if they did a measure now, there might be a fundamental difference in the ranking of some of those brands, because in some instances, retailers had entire facilities just desecrated, distribution centers eliminated, buildings brought to rubble and ruin, and the financial performance of those brands will be fundamentally impacted. You may well see quite a dramatic shift, particularly in the retailer distribution-based brands that are on the ranking. But yeah, good point you make, and the report has a clear precursor, stating that fact. So it would be interesting to see next year, because the report will have picked up from that point onwards. There'll obviously be a dip in value, but if there's some wonderful course correction coming out of the re-establishment of the economy and the settling down of political unrest. That said, again, we're going into local electioning, and we're going into national electioning thereafter. That in itself is going to bring another challenging time for the economy, for infrastructure, and, is it again another point for political groupings to take angst, anxiety, and frustrations out on the infrastructure that drives the economy. So those are points that we really need to be cognizant of moving into 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kevin, before diving into the detail of the rankings, we've covered this aspect of brand rankings a number of times. So I wanted to mention again that there are a number of reports that are published on the topic annually. We've covered one of them in detail before, that being Brand Africa Survey, Top 100 Brands in Africa 2021. The other is South Africa 50 2021. It's the annual report on the most valuable and strong South African brands. That is published by Brand Finance, Brand Directory. And I think that would be the only report that's really pegging itself head on head with Kantar's report as to brand valuation, whereas the Brand Africa Survey, Thandeka Chatsane-Moticoe's tool, looks at the most admired brands. So fundamentally through metrics and measures and association and relationships with brand, as opposed to the brand value that sits on the bottom line and how that impacts their financial standing and ranking on international markets. So diving into the reports, let me give you a quick snapshot of this. So total value of the most valuable top 30 brands in South Africa, 28.8 billion. Change over the last year, -3%, which I believe is really well contained, considering the impact of COVID on South Africa, particularly in light of the fact that we weren't necessarily an e-commerce first based economy, and it would have taken a lot longer for those developments and ecosystems to get to play, and I would have expected a much bigger drop. So the 10 most valuable South African brands, Kevin, they account for 65% of the total value of the 28.8 billion, that being 18.7 billion US dollars. Position number one, First National Bank. I don't know if you would have considered that. They came in with 2.699 million US dollars. Position number two, Vodacom. They came in with $2.572 million. Position number three, and this was quite an interesting one for me, considering the hard lockdown we had, plus the really stringent controls of alcohol purchased and consumed during lockdown. Castle came in at position number three at 2.529 million. Position number four, another bank, Standard Bank, coming in at 2.35 million. Position number five, the tussle for the second telecom provider, MTN, coming in at 1.979 million US dollars. And as we referenced earlier, position number six, our beloved chicken brand, Nando's, coming in at 1.678 million. Position number seven, a rapid riser, Discovery, coming in at 1.382. We all understand why Discovery would come in and really chart its way through the ranks. Took a good stance on how to approach COVID, develop great technology infrastructures, digitization of processes, participated in the registration of the COVID vaccine proposition, really just leaning in and doing what it could. Position number eight, I would have expected this to be a top 10, considering the amount of television and multi-screen viewership during COVID, was Dstv, coming in at 1.252 million. And yeah, position number nine, another bank, Absa Bank in this instance, coming in at 1.158 million. And what do you think position number 10 would be, Kevin? A category that hasn't appeared on the list yet.
Well, I'm just thinking, listening to this, thinking there's food and there's finance. so who is? I don't know.
It's on the money. That's exactly it. Well done. Yeah. Woolies coming in at position number 10, 1.086 million. The first of the retail category in the top 10 ranking.
So, do you think that speaks to the nation, though? Like, isn't it a little bit weird that the top valued brands in our country predominantly is finance brands?
Isn't there something wrong with that picture?
So, Kevin, great question. I think, again, it's just about if you're meeting the nation's needs from whatever service proposition your brand stands for, you're meeting it, delivering all of the points of consumer need, the salience, the meaningful difference. There's no reason what category you're in that you shouldn't have the right to be at the top. And as a nation, you know, the good thing is you often talk about the Steve campaign with FNB. We know that FNB have been incredibly diligent in their advertising and staying ahead of the game in their product development, in technology enablement. The app was one of the leading apps in South Africa. So if you look at all of those aspects that came along over the last few years, and they've been able to sustain that and build on it and get better, you know, that is why they move up the rankings. And the expectation of financial services being paramount during the life of COVID is absolutely a no-brainer. And from that point of view, I think that really it is important that we do see financial services brands sitting in top of the rankings. Interestingly, though, remember when we looked at the Brand Africa top 100 most admired brands, FNB didn't come out in the top ranking there. Standard Bank actually came ahead of FNB, although not in the top 10. The other Africa-based brands were sitting in the top 10 there. And in fact, I may even have a ranking of that. I'll just quickly cast my mind back to that whilst we're chatting. Here we go. GTE Bank was first. First Bank Nigeria second. Sorry, Absa was third. They did get into the top 10. UBA Nigeria, Equity Kenya, EcoBank Togo, Bank of Africa Mali, and only then at 8 and 9, Standard Bank and Capitec coming in. So FNB just didn't come into the spectrum at that point. And that points to the interesting difference between the various rankings, because most admired bank talks to a whole host of other aspects. Yes, the metrics that come from the BrandZ ranking as well, but the financial performance value of this and the Kantar proposition is really quite a different metric. And this is an important metric because this is the space where you can invest your money for long-term growth, as opposed to going to invest your money over the counter to purchase a product. Two quite different points of view there. Yeah. So interestingly, the category breakdown was quite surprising.
Absolutely.
So go for Kevin.
So, Craig, as we near to the end of today's show, what points and key takeaways do we have for listeners?
Kevin, there's about 9 points for our listeners, and these are as follows. Some are from our broad conversations that I've collated, and some of them are direct extracts from the report. There's some beautiful nuggets coming out of the report there as well. So a successful campaign should not only get people to actively desire a brand, it should also expose them to ideas, impressions, and feelings that influence how they shop in a category. So across the entire customer experience journey, as I mentioned, from the online to the offline and back into the online environment. Point 2 is one that I really love from the report, is that value is more than price. Value equals price, which consists of your outlay and your affordability, divided by the benefits, which consists of your trust, your safety, quality, convenience, the functional and emotional performance of the brand. Point 3, brands that develop an ecosystem tend to grow faster than the average brand. For instance, if you look at Discovery Group I mentioned earlier on, they've got health, they've got banking, they've got personal and business, they've got insurance, they've got technology, there's an app, there's a self-managed online process, there's monitoring the performance of your vehicle. All of those aspects tie into a really deep ecosystem that's been developed, and those are the brands that tend to grow faster than the average brand. Point 4. Growing brands in the ranking tend to exhibit a minimum of one of two characteristics. Consumers perceive them either as different or as providing excellent value. And in terms of different, these brands provide something distinct in the marketplace that they cannot get from anyone else or their peers. These brands also retain existing customers while charging, interestingly, a justifiably higher premium for products and services. In terms of the providing excellent value component for their brands, Kevin, these brands make fair exchange for the price exchanged. And if you remember from earlier in the conversation of the value equals price cash outlay divided by dividends, at least by benefits, we can very quickly determine which of those brands in the ranking here. So building brand functional performance is the extent to which consumers consider that a brand produces goods or services that adequately perform the function for which they are created. And building brand emotional performance, the brand provides customers with a positive feeling when they purchase or use that particular brand, and they add richness and depth to the experience of owning and using the brand. So the final key points, the 5 of them, are direct extract from the Kantar BrandZ most valuable brand rankings. They are noted as follows. Take your bearings. So this year, both global and local data continue to emphasize that meaningful difference is the cornerstone of creating brand power, or the ability to drive repeat business. Develop a Mzansi e-commerce strategy. In the past year, an ongoing trend towards online purchasing has only accelerated, with consumer retailers rapidly adapting to challenges of lockdown. Don't go dark. When money is tight, marketing often ends up in the crosshairs of procurement. We had this discussion. This may not be the wisest idea. The analysis also shows that brands that are growing their value during the pandemic are also characterized by increasing salience. Plan for increase in-home occasions, something that's never going to disappear. South Africans are spending more time at home, both for safety as well as financial reasons. And as a result, they're more online, investing in personal growth and changing how they eat. The final point here is set an example with sustainable practices. Again, a point we've covered in various different guises and conversations. The pandemic has put no pause on South Africa's desire to live in a more sustainable world. Today, they want brands to help them consume in a socially and environmentally responsible way. They also feel that sustainable living should not be an expensive pursuit, but an affordable option. And the final statement here is brands should look for ways to profit with purpose, creating products and services that don't merely fill functional needs, but to do so in a way that preserves the planet and future generations.
Fantastic, Craig. Yeah, I enjoy the don't go dark.
Yes.
We tend to kind of go, don't spend money on marketing, but yet it's so important. Absolutely. Craig, thank you. For our show for next week, what is coming up for if guys want to tune in?
Kevin, yeah, so what I'd like to do is look at the 3 rankings in particular that we've mentioned today, and look at the top 10 of each of those, and actually get into a bit of a deeper conversation around why brands admire the way they are in the admired ranking, and why brands performing the way they do in 2 brand valuation rankings. And for the first time, I've not done a direct one-on-one comparison of the top 10 of the 2 financial value rankings. It'd be interesting to get my head around that. But I'd also like to try and get, I did put a call out to Kantar to see if anybody was available there, but I might also put a call out to Jeremy Sampson to see if he's able to come and spend some time with us talking around the brand finance brand directory report, which we haven't covered in detail before.
Fantastic. Guys, so you want to tune in with us, it's every Thursday right here on ebizradio.com, and that's the Lunchtime Marketing segment, proudly supported by Hollard Insurance, hashtag big ads for small businesses. Craig Paisley, thank you so much for your time. Craig, thanks for the insights.
Brilliant, Kevin. Thank you. Good to chat again.
And chat soon. Cheers.
Definitely.